Happy Fantasy Playoffs at Week 1. We are starting on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast by looking ahead to Week 15 of action. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we're talking about a divisional matchup between the Rams and the 49ers. The 49ers currently heading at the market. We'll get to that in a moment. Myself, Luke Elder, alongside Tom Collins. We play in 2 leagues together, Tom. Delighted to say we both made the playoffs.
Yes, Dynasty League especially should be very interesting. This week we're in the semi-finals, and actually no, it's the quarterfinals, isn't it? I've got a bye this week. You've got a very winnable matchup, and it's a good time for fantasy football for everyone. Hopefully, all of you guys made the playoffs in your fantasy league, and if you don't do fantasy, next season we're going to be running a Turf and Touchdowns fantasy league. So make sure you join that. We'll talk all about that in the off season, so don't worry about it right now. But it's definitely a great thing to get involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested, register your interest down below. Just literally comment, say you want to play in the Fantasy League next year. We want to get an idea of numbers and what we might all be able to do on that side of things. That will be a massive help on that part. But we have got football at hand. We've got the Rams taking on the Niners, and we'll tell you about our friends as well over at SBK. They sponsor this podcast for all new customers. If you go over, place a bet of £10, you'll get £40 in free bets when you sign up. And also, at the weekends, they give a 25% free ACCA boost on NFL matches. If you fancy Tom's selections, my selections, or mix and match, or you just want to use your own and completely ignore us, that is not bad advice generally, then they'll get a 25% ACCA boost to use on your bets. Max stakes, T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. Now, I felt like I had to wear a Seahawks hat, Tom.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it and talk about the Niners and the Rams and not try and represent the divisional leaders at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to save this for our Sunday podcast because obviously there's a huge clash between the Seahawks and the Packers this weekend, our two teams going off against each other. But I thought I'd wear it now instead, try and get rid of all that friction that we'll be having in Sunday's podcast. I understand why you're wearing the Seahawks hat. This is a very crucial game, isn't it, in the divisional kind of stratosphere. Whoever wins this has a great chance looking towards the playoffs. Whoever loses and is immediately on the back foot. And Seattle kind of, I don't really know what way you want this result to go because both of these two teams are obviously very talented. They've got lots of fantastic skill players. Right now, the Rams are probably the better of the two, and therefore I'm quite surprised with how this market is shaped up.
Yeah, I'm not a Niners fan, but if they had to happen, if they, you know, like when in like comedy sketches when something's on the floor and someone tries to pick it up, it's like, oh, it's gone. Oh, it's gone. Oh. If they happen to like trip and fall into a honeypot and get their head stuck, but that means win the game, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
That's my Niners analogy, but you know, maybe the honeypot won't.
I don't love it.
I'm not sure. But at the moment, on the betting side of things, the Niners are 2.5-point favourites at home. The over/under is 49 points. You say, Tom, that you were surprised that the Niners were favourites. I assume it's just a home field advantage, but look, they did sort things out last week.
They did sort things out, but they're down 1,000,001 skill players. I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey's done for the year, Jordan Mason too, Isaac Guerrero. I don't really know about him. Like, is he going to play? And then you've obviously got Patrick Taylor, who's barely seen any action this year. He could be the lead back. Looking at wide receivers, no Brandon Ayuk. He's done for the season. Deebo Samuel, I mean, the guy took to Twitter to say that he's not struggling. He's just not getting the ball. That shows you what's happening with his season so far. It's not been good. And then you're looking at Juwan Jennings, who has been pretty useful, but he's no wide receiver one. George Kittle has obviously been the safety blanket for Brock Purdy all year long, and he will continue to do so. But they just don't have as many weapons as everyone expects with the 49ers. Meanwhile, the Rams, they were incredible last week. That was the game of the year so far against the Buffalo Bills. I think it was 44-42 or something like that. A phenomenal offensive game. And the Rams really proved themselves as a team to watch this year. And talking about watching the Rams, without a biased opinion, obviously I'm a Packers fan, without a biased opinion, I enjoy watching the Rams play more than any other team in the league right now. Matt Stafford is dialed in. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are arguably the two best wide receivers to watch in tandem. Kyron Williams has been a fantastic running back as well. Almost said Kyron Wilson again. And because their defense isn't thriving, there's points either side and they just produce brilliant game after brilliant game. So I'm developing a bit of a soft spot for the Rams, I have to admit. And because of the injuries on San Fran's side, I am very surprised that the 49ers are 2.5 point favourites here.
You say about injuries for the Niners, and yes, they've got a ton of injuries. Literally, all of them are to the same position. So
They
it's
are.
just a case of next man up. Oh, we'll bring someone else in. Next man up. We'll bring someone else in. I mean, they brought in Israel Abanikanda, who I think had just been let go by the Jets. They brought him in immediately. Just to touch on your Deebo Samuel point, yes, he's not really getting the ball as much, but there's a good reason for that. When he gets the
He's
ball
not
this
getting
season,
open.
he sucked. He's just not been good. Like 2 years ago, he was terrible. And he came out and he said, you know what? The stuff that went on in the offseason with the contract, it probably affected me. I didn't play as well. He was better last year. He sucked this year. He started off
Mhm.
the year okay. Then he's had a few tough games. I mean, his last 4 games, 7 targets against Seattle, 22 yards on 4 catches, 4 targets against Green Bay. He caught one of them for 21 yards. Buffalo, 5 targets for 4 catches and 20 yards. And then last week, 3 targets for 2 and 22. He's not scored a touchdown in any of them. On the rushing side of things, he's had 6 carries in the last 4 games. One of them he went for -1 yards, and last week he went 5 and 13 against Chicago, which, I mean, they're an easier run defense. When he touches the ball, he does not look like Deebo Samuel.
No, and he's kind of been a guy over the last few years that everyone's looked at as this person that's impossible to tackle. His yards after contact is just phenomenal, or it was anyway. This season, he's not getting open. Brock Purdy's not giving him a second look because of that. And when he's running the ball, he's barely making up any yards, as you say. So it's been a poor year for Debo. He was supposed to step up, especially when Ayuk went down for the season, but it's been Juwan Jennings that's done that.
Yeah, right. Let's get into our selections. I love Deebo Samuel in this game. I think he's going to do. No, I'm just joking. I do not
Yeah,
love
I was
Deebo
going to
Samuel in
say.
this game. Let's not do that one. We'll go into our selections. As I say, the Niners are 2.5 point favorites in this game. I'll go in with my one because I've noticed that we're doing something this week, Tom. We've
Go on.
mentioned that it's playoffs starting in fantasy football.
Hmm.
In one of my leagues, and I might be about to trade for him in another league. In one of my leagues, I've got Juwan Jennings, who I picked up off waivers, I think, in week 2, because I also had Brandon Ayuk. Um, you also have the guy that you're going to put up in your league as well. So
Yeah.
maybe it's blind faith. I'm not sure. But I think Juwan Jennings is in for another big week this time over. Over 68 and a half receiving yards is the line that I'm going to take. And I'm going to give him a touchdown as well, at least one. For Juwan Jennings to score more than one touchdown, he's 18-1, 2 or more.
Mm.
I don't hate that. He did it last week. He got 3 of them against LA earlier on in the season. Juwan Jennings is clearly Brock Purdy's go-to guy. Yes, George Kittle's involved, but his first read and his first look most of the time is at the moment to Juwan Jennings. But the Rams are not great as well. Tom mentioned at the top of the podcast that the Rams defense haven't been fantastic. They've allowed 23 passing touchdowns this season. That's the seventh most in the league. Last week, you look at Khalil Shakir, 5 for 106 and 1. Amari Cooper, 6 for 95. He had his first big game as a Bill. You look at AJ Brown 3 weeks ago, 6 for 109 and 1. Again, got a touchdown. And the Eagles haven't really been passing a great deal. We talk about players taking to social media. AJ Brown's been one of them. I say Juwan Jennings, he had a big week against LA in week 3. He had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks as well. That's 2 of them in the last week. And let's look at his last 4 games from a yardage percentage. 93 yards, 91 yards, 40 yards, 56 yards, and 90 yards. That's the last 5 weeks. That's been with 11 targets, 7, 5, and 8. Now, you look at that and think, well, what happened with the 40 and the 56? They were slightly down weeks. They were. You were absolutely right. They were down on what he's putting out at the moment. But Brock Purdy was injured against Green Bay, and San Francisco did nothing on offense in that game. That was his week with 40 yards. And then Buffalo, when he got 56 yards, it was a snow game. And again, San Francisco couldn't do anything with the ball at all. Christian McCaffrey got hurt mid-game. Those 2 games, I'd almost just get rid of them. And they weren't even that bad. If your real down game is 40 yards, I would take that. I wouldn't mind that at all. As I say, against LA, Juwan Jennings had 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was without Debo earlier on in the year. Since Brandon Ayuk has missed time and has suffered his season-ending injury, Juwan Jennings has become the guy in the offense, even while Christian McCaffrey was in the lineup. Look, his snap percentage with Ayuk was around mid-50%. Since Ayuk's gone, and yes, Juwan Jennings had to come back from his own injury, but since Brandon Ayuk has gone, his percentage, his snap percentage has gone up to mid-90s. I know last week it was down, but they blew out Chicago early on. He wasn't needed in that part of the game, and he dominated Chicago as well. They're a tough pass defense. We said that in weeks gone by. They did a good job on Justin Jefferson a couple of weeks ago. Chicago are terrible against the run. They're very good against wide receivers. Jawan Jennings looked good, though. Look, they paid him in the offseason. Good job, San Francisco, because if you were doing it this time around, you'd have paid him a lot more. And he's going to be a big part of your offense for years to come. I don't like San Francisco 49ers players, but I like Jawan Jennings. I think he's a very good player. I'll take the over 68.5, and I'll take Jawan Jennings anytime touchdown. I think that anytime touchdown, Tom, it is ridiculous. 15-8? I'll take that.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I mean, he's more likely to get a touchdown than Deebo Samuel, I'd say, and Deebo's definitely a shorter price. And then, especially if Guarendo's out of this game, as I say, we're filming this on Wednesday morning, so we're not 100% sure who the running back's going to be. But if Guarendo's out, are they really going to give a huge workload to Patrick Taylor? I mean, it just feels unlikely. It feels like they're going to put the ball into the hands of Brock Purdy, and therefore Jennings and Kittle will get extra looks. So I don't hate it by any means. I feel like this is a very Luke kind of play with Jawan Jennings. I know you're a big fan of him, but I do hope you go 2 out of 2 here. It feels a lot more likely than the odds suggest.
I think he smashes, honestly. I'm not saying he's going to do another week 3. It would be great if you could, Jawan. I would love that. But I think the line is pretty low. I think the touchdown price is ridiculous. I'm not saying he should be closer to even money. Well, he should be closer to even money, but he shouldn't be around that sort of price. But look, I'm taking Jawan Jennings. Tom, who have you got on your fantasy team at running back?
It's Kyron Williams who's at running back. Before I talk about why I like him in this spot, I've got 2 apologies to make. Firstly, Thursday night last week, I should have gone 2 from 2, and Josh Jacobs let me down by half a yard. What on earth? I'm doing a random Thursday night football. What on earth? What on earth happened there? How did Jacobs not cover? Secondly, I'm apologising for how garish this sofa is, because you are obviously seeing the red in your shot right now if you're watching.
I mean, it's a good job I'm not sat on it, because I'd be blending in with it. So.
You literally would. It'd just be a head. This is not my sofa. I am in a hotel, guys. For whoever wants to comment and say what I chose.
If you leave 100 likes, he'll steal it and bring it back from Saudi.
Good luck. How am I supposed to get this on a plane? Just carrying it in the airport like this?
That's not my problem. This is carry on. It's carry on.
Yeah, whack us 100 likes anyway. Right, back to this game. Yeah, hopefully this will make up for last week where we should have gone 2 from 2 on Thursday. My Sunday performance was bleak, by the way, with just one winner. So this is where I'm trying to get compensation for you guys. I like Kyron Williams, and his rushing line is set at 72.5 yards. I like the over here at 10-11. This is my one play in Thursday Night Football. Firstly, as I say, I like the Rams in this matchup generally. I think they're going to win, and I was very tempted to put him up on the spread at +2.5. I just don't love that line. If it was 3.5, it would be a banker material for me, but it's 2.5. So I'm leaving that, just sticking with the player prop. Last week against the Bills, the Rams were very, very pass heavy, weren't they? It was Cooper Kupp, it was Puka Nacua. It was everyone out in the preliminaries where Matt Stafford can throw and gain big yardage. That's kind of the game plan, and it worked to brilliant effect. They scored massive points. Puka was injured halfway through the game, yet he came back and still was like Terminator. It was incredible. This week, I think it's going to be much more run heavy against the 49ers. Now, that's not to say it's going to be a huge swing from pass to run, but last week it was very pass heavy. This week, I think they're going to be playing a little bit safer. The Niners are a decent pass defense. They're not a great pass defense, but they rank 4th overall. I say not great purely because, they're not like... They're not the Philadelphia Eagles with 2 amazing corners. They're good, but they're not great in my opinion. That being said, Kyron Williams is going to do very well in this game. You go back to when they played in week 3, he had 24 carries for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if he emulated that. And if he does, he'll easily hit the over. So far this season, he has a touchdown in 7 straight games. I would have put up anytime touchdown, but he's obviously a very short price in that market. He's also gone over 60 yards in all bar 2 games this year. So 60 plus is virtually guaranteed from what we've seen so far. Now, if you're talking about covering, so 73 or more yards in this game, he's done that 8 times already this season, as already mentioned, including the game where the Rams faced the 49ers earlier in the season. He generally gets between 15 and 23-ish carries, and he's not going to break big runs. This isn't a guy that runs and suddenly makes 40 yards here, 30 yards here. He's not the Ashton Genty of the NFL. That being said, he averages 6 yards, 7 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards per carry. It's constantly grinding out good positive yardage, and that always seems to work for Kyron to therefore hit 60, 70, 80 yards total by the end of the game. If the Rams do win this game and are winning for a vast portion of the game, then Williams is going to get even more of a workload. And I just really like him to cover here. So I'll take Kyron over 72.5 rushing yards. And hopefully we go 1 out of 1 on Thursday and we don't get a very, very tough beat like last week.
You might have seen me just turn my nose up then. It was nothing to do with your selection. I'm sure it was great, whoever it was. I just thought I'd send a trade mid-show to try and get Juwan Jennings in Dynasty. And I thought,
Sure.
we'll see how much he values him. I'll throw a third his way. Clearly not going to get him for a third, but if I did, great. He's replied he wants a third and a 1. And he'll give me Juwan Jennings and a 2 back.
Yeah, so that's a little bit too much. I mean, I'd value him at a high 2, probably. Maybe a low 1, but you know, the likelihood is Brandon Ayuk's going to move on, isn't he? So he could be wide receiver 2 in San Fran next year.
Well,
and that is if Debo stays.
Ayuk won't. They just paid him. Debo will go. He's gone.
Oh, sorry. I meant the other way around in what I said there.
Yeah, he's just messaging. I think Jennings is valuable as he's Purdy's go-to man. I'm putting him at a premium since he could go off in the playoffs. I was like,
yeah,
not
I
for
don't know
a
about
1.
that. I'd wait for the end of the year. Yeah.
For Juwan Jennings, I'm going to reply with a 2. You'll take a 2 and you'll like it. You can have a good 2. That's you. But yeah, that's an insight into my world. I did hear you say Kyron Williams, and you've called him Kyron Wilson so much now that when you said Williams, I was like, that sounds wrong.
It doesn't sound right, does it? I feel like we should continue, or I should continue calling him Kyron Wilson. But I tried so hard this week not to do that slip. So yeah, I hope you guys appreciate that. I actually called him by his right name, which is kind of a prerequisite for podcasts, especially when you're talking about sport and player props where people are looking to copy your plays. Mm-hmm. But I like Kyron Wilson, but his name's Kyron Williams, guys.
Yeah, Kyron Williams to pot the black.
This is just shocking. Let's end this podcast right now.
There's not many snooker puns that you can get, honestly.
Well, there are, but there's some dodgy ones, but we won't go down that road.
I don't even know what you're talking about. The snooker is a very reputable sport. Right, my selections for this Thursday. Juwan Jennings over 68.5 for receiving yards, and Juwan Jennings anytime touchdown. That's 10-11 and 15-8. Tom?
Kyron Williams over 72.5 rushing yards, 10-11. Hopefully bank a 1 out of 1 on Thursday night.
Was the pause because you didn't think that me saying Tom was the link to you?
Well, the pause was I was watching you on my screen going like this, but I was expecting like go, and it was just Tom.
We just have such good on-camera rapport. That's our problem. We work too well together. So everyone says it. It's fine. But they are our plays for this week. Leave a comment down below who you like. Also, let us know your fantasy implications. Who do you need to go off to win in week 1 of the fantasy playoffs? And are you fancying your chances of going a little bit further as well? We will update you, I'd imagine, on our maybe Sunday video, possibly. Depends when we actually get around to videoing it. But that will be coming later on this week, along with a horse racing video. Thank you for watching our Thursday night video. Thank you to SBK for standing by us and sponsoring us as well. Until we talk to you later on in the week, stay safe, look after one another. Goodbye.